Welcome back. In 1974, at the age of 21, Stephen became a novice monk in a Tibetan Buddhist order. 2 years later, he became fully ordained. Why did you do it? What attracted you?
Well, from a young age, I think probably about the age of 16 or so, I started being fascinated by the East. This was very much part of the 60s subculture fascination and so forth and so on. I'd also had no formal religious upbringing as a child. My family had rejected the church at the time of my grandfather. And I think I felt something missing. And I felt that that lack was probably going to be more filled by something from outside my own culture than from within it.
So had you specifically looked at Christianity and specifically rejected it? Because that was the religion of your society.
Only in a very loose way. No, I had not sort of made any kind of study or anything like that. But I was what it boiled down to really is I did not find in the Christian ministers and vicars and so forth I met figures who inspired me in any deep way. They did not. They seemed basically to be as confused as I was.
Okay.
And admittedly, my interest in Buddhism in the East was no doubt romantic and idealistic and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, when I got to India at the age of 19, I was extremely touched and moved by the Tibetan people.
Yes.
I went up to Dharamsala where the Dalai Lama has his base.
Yes.
And I met these people who were, most conventional terms, were in a dreadful situation. They'd recently been exiled from their country.
Yes.
They were living in poverty in India, of all places, and yet they had within them a kind of radiance, a confidence, a clearness of mind.
And you attributed that to Buddhism, to their Buddhist beliefs?
Yes, I did. I attributed it to the Buddhist culture.
Yes.
And particularly when I started meeting the lamas, the monks, there I found those qualities in some ways even more enhanced.
Right.
And I was very, very touched by that.
So these were inspiring figures, which would have attracted you to Buddhism, but why to then move on to become a Buddhist monk?
Well, to become a monk in traditional Buddhism is effectively a way of saying, yes, this is what I really want to do. If I wish to pursue my Buddhist studies and to really cultivate the practice of meditation and so forth, then this is not only a symbolic act that, as it were, affirms that commitment, but it also offers a way of life in which all other distractions are removed.
Okay. So would Buddhists under the Tibetan tradition, would they tend to become monks for a period and then stop, or would they tend to do it as a lifelong?
It's kind of tacitly understood that one's commitment would be a lifelong one, and I think that has to be the case. I mean, it has to, for it to have that level of seriousness and ultimacy.
So there are no Buddhist traditions in which it's understood you would do it for a few years and then come out. Are there some traditions?
No, there are some now. In Thailand, for example, you can become a Buddhist monk for a month or 3 months or 6 months or a year.
Right. We've already, I guess, moved into the area of acknowledging that there are different streams, as there is within Christianity, different approaches. And I'm aware of 4 streams: the Theravadan stream, the Mahayana stream, the Tibetan, and the Zen. Are there any other major ones than that, or are they all?
That loosely covers many of the main ones that are known in the West, but actually if you were to go, say, to China or Japan, you'd find that most Buddhists there don't fit into any of those categories. There's Pure Land Buddhism, which is a form of devotional Buddhism that worships the Buddha Amitabha. That's probably the largest form of Buddhism in East Asia. And there are also many new religious movements, again, primarily in
So the Amida Buddhism, the Buddha is a divine character in there?
Pretty much,
divinized character.
Yes. The Buddha of Pure Land Buddhism is seen pretty close to a kind of God who resides in a paradise in the West, and by praying to whom one, as it were, assures a good rebirth after death, in a heaven, as it were. But also, of course, in its more deeper theological aspect, it's a recognition that this very place we are now can become a pure land if only one were to, as it were, transform one's thinking, one's behavior, so forth, such that it would happen that way.
Getting back to your life as a monk, some people thrive in the sort of highly structured atmosphere of a monastic order, but you became disillusioned with institutionalism. I think you wrote that you value self-reliance over devotion.
Yes.
So this is a personality difference type thing? There are some people who love it, do they?
Well, I think one needs to distinguish between monasticism as a vocation, in other words, a calling, something that deep down that you really, as it were, identify with. You think of yourself as a monk. For myself, I tried to pretend that that was the case, I feel. But in most ways, I saw monasticism as an opportunity for me to really go in depth into Buddhist study
Yes.
and practice to pursue a way of life that was most supportive of what I most wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever really saw it as a vocation.
Okay, but so a person who is a Buddhist monk and who sees it as a vocation, how do they spend their life? What are they doing?
Well, I think there's a problem even with the word monk. That suggests in our Christian culture someone who sort of lives apart from society in a monastery, a cloistered existence. Buddhist monks actually have a very wide range of roles within the societies themselves. Certainly there are monks who dedicate themselves to meditation and to solitude and so on, but many of the others, probably most, are involved in pastoral work, they're involved in education, they're involved often even in things like farming and all kinds of work of the society.
So is that the ability to interpenetrate the community, is that because Eastern communities are like that? I mean, would this work well in the West?
In the Eastern communities, the Buddhist monastery, if we can call it that, was really an integral part of the society. It performed a valuable social function. But what has happened in the process of modernization in the last century is that many of the functions of the Buddhist monastery have been appropriated by the state. So that education, for example, healthcare, all of these are now taken away from the monastery, which gives the monastery a sense far more of being a contemplative, solitary, spiritual
Well, that's happened in the
place.
West, I guess, with Christian monastic orders, where the state's taken over. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the West now, when we try to create a monastic order, it tends to be thought of primarily as a kind of spiritual retreat. And I think it'll take a long time before Buddhism is sufficiently mature in its Western forms to find a form of monastic life that meets the vocational need, but hopefully also is able to extend into having a valuable social function.
Social function, yeah. Well, before you exited Buddhism, you were attracted to Zen Buddhism in a Korean order. And you said that was because that values questions over answers.
That's right.
What's the essence of Zen Buddhism, just in like a sentence or two? Why is Zen different from the rest?
Zen Buddhism is a movement that started in China that sought to go back to the primary experience of the Buddha himself. In other words, to bring alive the question, what does it mean to be here? And therefore it ceases or it abandons the attempt to somehow just perpetuate a set of dogmas and beliefs and theories and so forth, and tries to bring alive in each person this key question of what is this life?
So it's intense and experiential,
yes,
rather than what, theoretical or ritualistic.
Indeed. I mean, there are theoretical and ritualistic elements, but the core practice is one in which, in my case, for example, I just sat for up to 10 hours a day just asking myself, what is this?
Yes.
What is this? That's all you do. It's to bring alive that sense of perplexity, of puzzlement, of existential curiosity, to really awaken that side of life.
So you disrobed in 1986. In other words, you stopped being a monk at that stage. You married a former Buddhist nun who's French by birth, and you still write and support. You still write and teach in support of Buddhism. So you're still, in every sense, a Buddhist, except you're no longer a monk. So you're still strongly for Buddhism.
Oh, indeed, yes. I strongly feel an affinity and an identity with that tradition, and my work is exclusively focused on teaching, interpreting. I've also done prison chaplaincy work and so forth and so on. But yes, that is my life, without a doubt.
And you're obviously quite happy that Buddhism can dovetail in with the West, that it's not a thing which is started in the East and therefore is doomed to stay there.
Well, of course, you see, Buddhism already has undergone major cultural shifts. It moved from India to China, which was as significant a shift as it is from India to the West.
Right.
China and India were not in any way compatible. So Buddhism has a capacity to reinvent and recreate itself.
What about the syncretistic thing? What do you think about people adopting bits of religious traditions, taking them on board, and being a little bit of Buddhist and a little bit of Muslim and a little bit of Christian? Does that destroy the integrity and the value of a...
Well, I think in some ways perhaps it could, but I think we live in a world now in which we increasingly value the rights and the priorities of the individual to create his or her life. And in a spiritual sense, I feel we are moving into a world in which religion won't simply be something you are born into and you sort of go through the motions until you die, but rather religion too will become more seen to be in the arena of mature adult choice.
Okay,
and this is happening now.
Okay, so it's not something that you sign up with, but it's something you actually actively choose.
Yes, I feel that's the case.
Yeah.
And to draw from, I mean, certainly there are Christians who practice Buddhist meditation, and I have no problem with that at all. I certainly wouldn't want to see Buddhism, though, somehow reduced to a form of spiritual exercise that is somehow becomes secularized and bland.
Yeah.
I do have a commitment to Buddhism as a much more complex cultural movement.
Some of your detractors have referred to you as an agnostic. I would have thought that would have been praise for a Buddhist to be an agnostic.
Well,
it starts right in an agnostic position.
Well, I refer to myself as an agnostic. I don't need my detractors to tell me that.
Right.
But again, I do feel that at its heart, in its origins, Buddhism is an acknowledgement of I don't know what this life is. I don't know what happens after death. This not knowing seems to me integral to the ability to ask questions. Yeah. And I feel that the Buddha was agnostic in that deep sense, yes.
Well, he seemed to say that it's not a question of whether the gods exist or not, but let's not bother with that.
Exactly. Well, you see, the Buddha, I feel, it's quite clear from the early Buddhist teachings that he was not concerned with answering certain questions that we would consider to be religious or metaphysical in nature. Where did the universe come from? Where did it go to? Are mind and body same, different? All that stuff he had no interest in. He wanted to focus on a praxis that actually brought alive the deepest questions of our life and a path whereby we could respond to them in an authentic way.
Okay. Well, we need to go to a break. And when we come back from the break, we're going to ask, how did my guests' discontents come together as a systematic critique of Buddhism to the point of advocating Buddhism without beliefs? Come back soon.